So good afternoon everybody, and welcome to the Women in Pensions session of Pensions Awareness Week. Thanks a million for taking the time to join us this afternoon. We're set up for a really interesting discussion. We have a panel of experts who I'll introduce to you before we start. We have Terry Oroz, who is Head of Public Policy at Irish Life Group. Welcome, Terry. We have Leanne Long. Leanne is founder of FinanciallyFit.ie, which is an online platform created to inspire young women to take control of their financial lives. Welcome, Leanne.
Hi, Susan.
And we have Olive Ryan, who is Head of Client Services at Moneycube. Hi, Olive.
Hi, Susan.
So before we start, you might be wondering why we felt it was a good idea to have a separate day for women and pensions. So before we get into our discussion this afternoon, I'm going to show you a video which will explain way better than I can why we've chosen to do just that.
Imagine a world, a lot like our own, but with one major difference. Women can't have a 99.
How are you, ladies? Would you like an ice cream? All I can give you is small cones. These are women. The men get the big ones. And there's a rule here, look, see? Female customers.
We only receive a 77. How does that come about?
Men get the 99 and the ladies get the 77. Well, it's the same really, it's just 22% smaller than the big man size, yeah. Here you go.
Oh, that's too tiny. Come on.
I'll pay the same price.
No, I'm sorry, yours will have to be smaller. The ice cream for women is smaller.
22% less?
Yeah.
Oh, and I don't even get as much of a flake either.
It'll be half a flake.
Ah, good face.
Hang on a second.
I would definitely be going on the streets protesting. It's ridiculous. Girls and boys are the same.
I think yours should look the same too.
The women.
Should we swap?
No,
There you go,
I
we're allowed
can't.
to
I
do
actually can't let that happen. I'm going to be sacked.
In Ireland, women's pensions are likely to be 22% less than men's. Women join pension plans around the same time as men. They contribute similar percentages. They follow similar investment strategies, yet the difference in final tally is significant. Irish Life would like to welcome you to join us on the journey towards balance. Join the conversation today. To learn more, go to www.irishlifecorporatebusiness.ie/pension parity.
So an interesting fact there that, if I'm honest, I wasn't aware of. I probably have been aware of the gender pay gap, but I hadn't been aware that it extended into pensions income. And we're lucky to have Terry with us today, who is one of the brains behind that advert. So Terry, I'll come to you first, if that's okay. What are the facts here? What is the 22%? Where did that come from? What is the gender pay gap that we have in pensions at the moment?
Hi, yeah, well, as you can see from our video, we did a bit of research in Irish Life. So we looked at 80,000 pension members across nearly 1,400 pension schemes, and we did a comparison between men and women to see what was happening in pensions real time now, and that's from the very big employers to smaller employers. And I suppose three factors kind of stood out. One was one of the big factors of the differential between the pension sizes, and that 22% came from our own research, was the salary differential. So on average in Ireland, there's a 14% salary differential between the genders, and that gets compounded from when you look at the pensions. And why is it coming out so high through the pensions? Well, one's the salary. The second one is time taken out of work. And in particular, when women take time out of work for caring responsibilities, for maternity leave, and when you take that time out of work, it can have a real impact on your pension scheme. So if you take a couple of years out of work, which is unpaid, in your 30s, and you roll that forward, the impact that has on your pension can be quite big. And then the third factor, which is, again, crucial and very specific to women, is that women tend to live longer, which is great, But what you end up then with is a smaller pension pot for having to live on average probably about 5 years longer than a man will have to live. And when we dug down into the statistics within our own schemes, we found that the differences weren't being caused by women starting their pensions at a different age, because men and women were starting more or less at the same age. It wasn't due to the fact that men were engaging in kind of more risky, more active investment policies, which was giving them a greater yield, because actually they were coming out at around the same. And it was basically down to the factors that are the salary differentials and the times out of work.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, it's an interesting one, and it's not one I would ever have considered. I guess when we're taking time out, be it for maternity leave, for education, whatever it may be, you sort of think about maybe the short-term impact of that and how are you going to survive that period, but not thinking about the sort of longer-term view. So thanks for that. It's very interesting, and I think probably something people aren't aware of, and maybe a bit more. So hopefully something that comes out of this session is sort of awareness on this topic, so we start to think about it. Leanne, I might come to you next. Like when we're talking about time out of work and things like that, do you think that's something that maybe would be even more compounded in years to come, as the sort of linear career path that we would have had up to this point is becoming a lot more varied, and maybe ups and downs as people retrain, as they travel and do different things? So do you think, judging by sort of younger people in the workforce today, that maybe this is a problem that potentially could even get a bit worse rather than better if we don't start to have a look at it?
Yeah, I think definitely, Terry touched on some very interesting points there. We do, for women in particular, you can take longer periods out of, working your professional career. And you can see the studies show that does compound and it adds up over time. And I guess as well for, I suppose, younger generations now as well, a lot of people, they want to travel, and you may have those different career changes as well, so you might have that gap. So all of this, is really can contribute to it over time. I suppose the amount of money that you will, I suppose, accumulate over time in your retirement fund. And like that as well, we're all living healthier, longer lives as well. So that's something else that can impact it, definitely.
So I suppose what we're saying is we're sort of, because of the sort of income gap, we're getting to have a smaller pot, but we have to use it for longer, which isn't a great place to be. Olive, I'm wondering, do we need to think about retirement differently? So I wonder if in sort of, sometimes when you think about retirement, you think about quite an older person who's finished working, and maybe that our view of retirement needs to change, because this is about funding a lifestyle for longer, but probably maybe a different lifestyle than we would have seen people retiring have before. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, absolutely, Susan. The difference in the lives that we live now is, so can you hear me? Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me there.
Yeah, perfect. Keep going.
The difference in the lifestyle that we have now compared to even what our parents and grandparents had will be different when we retire also. So there's a lot of things that we do now today that we will probably continue doing when we retire. We're still going to socialize, we're still going to go on our holidays, and all of that means we're still going to get our hair done, we're still going to get our nails done, all those nice things that we do for ourselves now, they're all going to keep going when we retire. And retiring at 65, 67, whatever the retirement age will be by the time we get there, it's a younger old retirement age, if that makes sense. We're far more active, I suppose. If we're going to be living longer lives, we're going to be more active in the years that we are in retirement. So it means that we do need more income to fund for that lifestyle that previous generations might not have experienced before us. So it's a different outlook, I suppose, on that, what retirement life looks like.
It's a whole new chapter now, and it's often that people can even change careers at this stage. Maybe they work a bit less, but they want to keep working, and potentially going back into education is an option. So it's a whole new chapter now, isn't it, that we need to think about starting to fund for. So I suppose if we were to sort of start to talk about, are there things that get in the way, particularly for women, of looking at this area? Of getting involved and, I suppose, taking an active interest in their pension sooner rather than later. So, Leanne, you have a lot of followers on your blog on Financially Fit, who I know have been sort of raising some points with you. Is there barriers out there that people are calling out that are sort of getting in the way of them having a good look at their pension and thinking about the future in this way?
Yeah, we definitely see that there are barriers out there, Susan. Look, I mean, you know, when it comes to pensions, and thinking of that, it's probably not at the top of our priority list. You know, we have a lot more going on. We lead busy lives now, and it's something, you know, we might put to the back of our mind. But I guess there's three predominant barriers that we see, and we've heard a lot of over the last week or so. The first one, I suppose, being the pension age and retirement age. As you touched on, you know, it can seem like it's so far away into the future, and you kind of put it to the back of your mind. And then the second one is it can be complicated and people can find it a bit overwhelming, the thoughts of maybe going to a financial advisor and not knowing what to ask, what to look out for in terms of fees and charges. You know, they might feel they have to have a certain amount to even start putting money into a pension. And then the third point, I suppose, that can be a barrier as well is, you know, people aren't sure, is it safe to put money into a pension? You know, where is your investment going? And, you know, you hear of, you know, pensions falling in value. And I think earlier in the week, you know, the guys excerpts were on again, and they had Ray from Moneycube, and I think Stephen from Aviva were on again. And a lot of these points were coming up there on their webinar as well. And just, I suppose, to briefly reiterate those, the first thing, you know, you touch on is, you know, it's the earlier to start, the better. It's never too late, I guess. And, you know, over time, you're giving yourself the opportunity to grow your money over time. And, you know, out of that, then, you know, it's I suppose the tax benefits that come with it as well. And, you know, there's a lot of areas I think we're going to go into more details on them as well today that hopefully should help people to, I guess, to oversee that barriers and make it more easy to actually get started.
Yeah. So we'll maybe try and tackle a couple of the barriers while we have the experts with us today. Terry, is it very complicated? It seems complicated, and people talk about getting tax back in different funds. And is it very complicated, this area, for people when they start?
Oh, absolutely. It's baffling even to the experts, some of the rules and the different types of pensions that are out there. And to go back to, you know, one of the key issues in relation to pensions coverage for both genders, not just women, but also men, is inertia and the complexity. And I suppose that's why the government is now looking at kind of giving people what they call...
So Terry's just frozen there for me. So I think, Olive, do you want to just jump in on this while we sort our technical issues?
Yeah, I think what Terry was about to say there is that auto enrollment is due to come into Ireland, and it is already in other countries such as Australia. Is very well known for it, which will ensure that every employer has a pension when you start working for them, so that everyone from the very first day they start work in their careers, in their entire life, will mean they're in a pension. So that's the one area that I suppose Ireland has missed out over the years. The complexity side of it, yes, there's a lot of information to navigate, but I suppose that's where the likes of Moneycube come in. An independent financial advisor can help you get through all that, break it down into simple layman's terms, you know, in simple plain English, and help you understand what it is that you're getting into. Because at the end of the day, it's really just a savings plan. That's what it is. It's a very long savings plan you won't touch till you're retired. But that's really what it is. So I suppose trying to get that message across to people that that's what it is, and break through that complexity that lies underneath it that you don't usually need to know about, and your financial advisor can help you get around that.
So Olive, is it safe? Is there, if I put money into a pension, you hear pension funds collapsing and all that sort of thing, is there a risk that I won't get my money back if I start a pension?
Yeah, there's always a risk because it is an investment. But there's ways you can protect yourself against that risk. And the key word, and other people throughout the week have mentioned this as well, is diversification. So if you put your money into a different number of different types of investments, then you cover yourself from any one of those not returning what you put into it. Again, financial advisors can help you with that, but there are a lot of funds out there from providers that are already set up with that in mind, so you don't have to figure it out yourself. You just pick one of their, what they call multi-asset funds, and then it's already set up for you in a number of different things. The other option as well, as I suppose a key point to consider when you're investing in pensions, is that it is long term. So it means that if you're starting out when early, you have potentially 40 years of an investment to look forward to. The investing in the higher kind of risk funds at the beginning allows you to build up your fund, but then coming close to the end, when you're about to retire, is when you try and get out of that and switch slowly back into something more secure, and that will help you then to secure what you've grown already over the years and not risk losing all of that when it comes to retirement, which is how other people in the past have lost money, because they've been in something that has actually been too risky, too close to retirement age, and that's how they lost out.
So if we're talking about, say, Leanne's guys, if you start earlier, you have a bit more time to take a bit of risk and recover it over time is part of that, I would imagine. Yeah. Thanks, Olive. So what do we do about this? So Terry, if I was to ask you, the guys watching the webinar here, what action do we need to start taking here to address this gap, first of all, but also to secure this income for the future, for our future lifestyles? What's the first action you think people should take?
Well, if you're not in a pension and your company offers you a pension, you should join it as quickly as possible to make the most of both your employer contribution and your tax relief. When it comes to women and when it comes to gaps that occur due to taking time out of work, it is really worth factoring in. When you go on maternity leave, certainly when I went on maternity leave, like I calculated what the lost income to me would be when I was on unpaid leave. I never thought about the pension. So you do need to consider your pension for the amount of time you're out, and consider when you come back to work, if you have the capability to increase your pension contributions or your AVCs, even by 1% over a couple of years, that'll help you recoup some of the hole that's within your pot from the times that you weren't there. Now, I recognize that can be really difficult, in particular, if you have just come back from maternity leave and you've got additional childcare costs and everything else. But again, the tax benefits of just increasing by a little bit can make a big difference going out into the future.
Great. So the company schemes, a lot of organisations match your contributions, don't they? So when you putting in yourself, you could potentially be getting equal amounts from your employer as well. So it's a bit of win-win there as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a company scheme and they are matching your contributions or putting anything towards your contributions, not participating in the pension scheme is basically just turning down additional salary. And, we ran a pilot in Irish Life where we we gave people that behavioural nudge and we opted everybody into the pension scheme, and then you could opt out after X amount of months. And actually, once people are in the scheme and they are contributing, they tend to stay in. It's that leap to actually start that is the biggest problem.
That's so interesting, and I like that bit. You're turning around extra salary. I think that's a good prompt for anybody who has the opportunity of a scheme and isn't in it yet. Because I suppose you feel, well, I'm going to miss that money in the short term, but actually the gain, future you will be absolutely delighted that you contributed as early as you could. Olive, anything from your side? So I suppose that covers off a lot of the company side. So if you are somebody who works themselves, or maybe you work for somebody who doesn't offer a scheme, what's the first action that you would take, you'd advise people to do?
I think if you're working for yourself or you're not in a scheme, there are options for you to start a pension as well. You don't have to be part of a company scheme. And the government have, like Terry has said, offer tax relief. So you can still gain from the tax relief that the government offer by starting a pension. So there are options. There's a personal pension that you can start up if you're a self-employed individual, or you could start up as what they call an executive pension, which is something for a company with a couple of owners in it that can start up, and each one of them has their own plan within that. So it's not part of a big company. You have control over what you invest in, who's your provider. So there's a lot of benefits, I suppose, to people who are not part of a company scheme, that they can actually start up something on their own, that they have complete control over, and they get to choose who it's with, what the funds are that they go into. So I would say the first step, I suppose, would be to talk to a financial advisor to see what your options are, how your pension contributions are based on your income. So how much you can actually put into your pension and match that against what you can afford, I suppose, and see how much tax relief you can get back as well. So that, I think the first step is to talk to someone, a financial advisor, who can help and guide you through that. But there's absolutely no reason why anyone cannot be in a pension, whether they're part of a company, self-employed, or in a company that doesn't offer a pension. You know, there's always an opportunity there for someone to join a pension. Like I said before, it's just another type of savings plan.
And if I was to get in touch, say somebody in Irish Life or Moneycube, to have a chat with a financial advisor, I suppose are people, is that going to cost me a fortune? Will I come out with a bill for having spoken to somebody and all that? Because I don't know if that gets in the way sometimes of picking up the phone, of going, how much does this advice cost me even to get this started? Is it expensive?
Really good point, Susan. No, it's not. It's actually free. Most financial advisors won't charge you anything for a consultation. So you can talk to anyone, any financial advisor, to get information about yourself. How financial advisors, suppose, get paid is through the provider that you set your pension with. So they provide a commission payment to the provider or to the financial advisor for that. So it won't cost you anything. And try, I suppose, to find a provider who will also make sure that 100% of your money, is really key, that 100% of your money is invested, so that none of that is being lost through any commission payment to your financial advisor. There are options for everyone to do that for you, so don't make sure you check that with whoever you go to make sure that they're doing that for you. But it won't cost you anything. You can pick up the phone, send an email, look for people online. There's a great website called Brokers Ireland, which has a list of all the financial advisors who are on their membership from around the country. So there's plenty of people out there. If you Google that, you'll find somebody and get in touch with them. They won't do it. It's completely free. It won't cost you a thing.
Okay. Thanks, Olive. Leanne, from your perspective, is there anything in addition to what Terry and Olive has said that you would advise people as sort of a first step, or maybe they have it covered?
Yeah, no, they both have covered it. I suppose the first step really is just taking that, first step to get in touch with a financial advisor. They're the experts and they can talk you through the different pension schemes that are available to suit you, your needs, your lifestyle, what stage you are, your financial circumstances, your personal, and then, I suppose the earlier the better. It's always going to be good to start that contribution. Each monthly contribution will accumulate over time, and you have more time to grow that long-term savings fund, as Olive mentioned, and you're getting the benefits then of that tax relief and getting to essentially keep more of your earned income, your hard-earned money, and put that into your own pocket, with the exception then, of course, you just have to leave it there until retirement age. But I think, the first step is, as well, just to note that, you can start with, as a little amount that is, you're able to suit you. And I think, you know, if it is a personal pension plan you're setting up as well, you have the ability to increase it as you go and pause it if you need to. You know, we all have different things happening in our lives, different financial journeys that we're on, and life happens. So it's good to know that, you know, if you have other financial priorities that you need to take precedent at a time, that you can pause it, that, you know, it's not a fixed contract that you have to have, you know, €100 each month to contribute to it, that you have that kind of control over it. And as well, I think most pension providers these days, you're able, with advances in technology, we're able to log on. You can actually see your money that you're contributing each month. Like I know for a long time, when I signed up to my first employer pension scheme, you know, it kind of went over my head. I wasn't sure who I'd signed up with. But after a few years, I kind of looked into it, and I was able to set up my online access, and you can actually log in and you see how much your contributions have made, like, throughout the years. And then if you have your employer's additional contribution on top of that, you know, it really does add up and it makes a difference over time. And, you know, I know when I look back at it now, I probably never would have accumulated that much that's there if I hadn't had that, I suppose, this financial product available there to put my money into, and the assets classes to help grow that over time as well. So I think, you know, that's easy. It makes it seem more realistic that, you know, you can see your money's there and that's yours. Unfortunately, we can't go to the ATM and withdraw it until we're 60, but, you know, it's nice to know that it's there. And I think having that kind of transparency, you can see the type of fund that you want to go into as well, to suit your risk profile. You know, there's so much more, I suppose, information available for us there now as well. So it makes it that bit easier, I think, when you're getting started.
So thanks a million, Leanne. That's great. So we've talked about if you have the option of going into a company scheme, do that. We've talked about if you work for yourself or you don't have the option of a company scheme, you can talk to a financial advisor and set up your own pension. And we've talked about if you've nothing in place, to maybe just start. Something is better than nothing is what we're saying at this point. So if I could ask, maybe just to add a little bit of complication to matters. So I've worked in a number of different jobs during my career. I love moving on to new things, and I now work for myself. So I have pots of pension in different company schemes in various organisations that I've worked. Is there a way for me to sort of bring all of that together to assess where I am? Because I imagine there's possibly a lot of people who are tuned in who would have a similar sort of career path of having worked in different places, worked for themselves, worked for organisations, and maybe are, if it's anything like me, afraid to even start to look to see what's there, and I wouldn't know how to pull all of that together. Terry, is there somewhere we could start for somebody in that situation to sort of bring it all together and just see even where do we stand today?
Yes, absolutely. However, you need to be careful and you need to assess each of your own pension schemes. So, for example, if there are defined contribution pension schemes, which means effectively you put in money, your employer puts in a set amount of money, and kind of your pot is what's invested on the back end, it is easy enough to transfer that into another pension and consolidate it together. However, if you have a defined benefit pension scheme, which exists in some companies or within the public sector, it may not make sense to actually transfer that money out, because what the defined benefit pension scheme does, it's a promise of that they will pay you X amount of money when you go into retirement. However, if you pull money out of that scheme or get a transfer value in advance and the scheme isn't fully funded, you won't get the entirety of that money back. So it's really worth getting advice, and it's really worth having a look at your different pension pots and where they are, and what the underlying promise behind them are before you start to move them.
Okay. So it comes back to that advice piece again as the first step, isn't it? To talk to somebody and sit down with them, and they'll help you navigate some of this stuff. Yeah, great. Thanks very much, Terry. So we have some pre-submitted questions actually, so that have been submitted over the course of this week. And we're just going to show some of those questions that people have sent in, and then I will turn to your good selves to answer them on the back of that, if that's okay.
I'm thinking of taking time out to be a stay-at-home parent. What will happen to my pension if I decide to do this?
Hi everyone. So my question is, to ensure a pension, if I stop working and just become a landlady, what kind of tax can I pay? How much is it? And how often do I need to pay it? Thank you.
So I've left it very late to start a pension. Is it ever too late to start?
If you lived abroad and had a pension scheme there, can you transfer it to a new pension scheme here in Ireland?
Hi, I was wondering how you'd go about starting a pension if you're self-employed. Thanks.
Hi guys, my question is it safe to have my money in a pension?
So some really good questions there, and actually some we've sort of hit on, so we might just touch on a few of the themes again of what was coming through there. So the first person asked about stepping out of the workforce to be a stay-at-home parent. Terry, I know you've touched on some of this around maternity leave, but it's probably a slightly different question that's been asked there about being a stay-at-home parent and what happens to their pension on the back of that. Could I ask you that one?
Yeah, well, their pension will be preserved and it will stay there until their time of retirement. If you are going to go and become a stay-at-home parent, though, what you do need to do, and it's really important, is you need to register with social welfare in relation to that status so that you can contribute. They will take that into account as part of your contributory pension, so that it does that carer's perspective is still part of the contributory pension, and you won't be losing out towards the non-contributory side. I suppose one of the proposals that we've been looking at, and what happens in other jurisdictions, is that there is an allowance made for partners to be able to put money into spousal pensions at times when they aren't earning, and that's one of the things that we'd be pushing that the government should be looking at, to allow for a tax efficient methodology so that people who are at home can still make contributions into that pension on an ongoing basis.
That seems to be a fair way of looking at it, definitely. And then the other, we've talked about sort of company schemes. Olive, I don't know if there's a simple answer to this question or not. It was asked, if you lived abroad, can you transfer that pension into an Irish scheme?
That is a quite complicated area. In most cases, the answer is no. There are some occasions where you can. It's very complicated. There's a lot of tax rules around it. Basically, most companies are, pension providers here are reluctant to go to do that because it's so complicated, and there's a lot of onus on them if they do it to match what the other country, the rules that they had. So it's terribly complicated. In most cases, the answer is no, I'm afraid. So it will be a case that you might have to leave it there until it's reached its retirement time for you to draw it from that country instead. Is probably the easiest thing to do.
So it's not gone, it just sits there instead and waits for you to draw it down, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's still in that other country, still waiting for you, like Terry had said, in an Irish pension here that you've left your job. It's there, it's still there, preserved for you, but you'll be able to draw on it when from that country when you retire. And there are some other tax rules around that, but you will be able to still get it, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Olive. I think we've touched on the self-employed, and I think you covered that quite well earlier, Olive, so I won't ask that again. But I think a really good question from one of the ladies on the VT is it ever too late to start a pension? Terry, what are your views there?
No, it's never too late. Having said that, if you're what you might need to consider is how much you're going to be contributing into your pension the later you leave it. And as well, there is, kind of the tax bands get bigger to allow you to contribute more as you get older. So you might just need to consider whether it is more efficient to put bigger sums in that you would have than you would have done when you were younger. Now, having said that, there's no point in starting at 65 with the view to retiring at 67.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. And again, if you were sort of getting to that stage, talking to a financial advisor generally about how do I get the most of my money at this stage is probably a good thing to do. So never too late to discuss it. And probably on the back of that, Leanne, it's probably never too early to start. You would say, I would imagine.
Yeah, just following on from what Terry said there, of course, the earlier the better, because you're giving yourself longer to accumulate growth over time. I suppose the more contributions you make then as well, it benefits it greatly. And look, it's your money, I guess. You're getting to take home more of your pay and giving less income tax away that's going to the government. You just have to wait to take it out, but you're able to use this to help grow your money and putting it into an investment fund that's going to help you to grow your money over time. Whereas otherwise, if you took your money out after you've already been taxed on that, and you put it into a savings account, the interest rates are very low, you're not going to be able to grow it as much, and you'll still have dirt tax. Or if you took that money out as well after being taxed and put it into another investment fund that's not a pension fund or that long-term savings vehicle, you're going to have capital gains tax. You're not going to be able to grow those funds over time. You're going to be taxed on that. So it's giving people the opportunity to avail of that and keep more of your money. So look, it's always a good time to start. And as Terry said, it's never too late. You're getting to keep more of your own money in your pocket. So, but the earlier the better. Obviously, studies show that it does accumulate more over time.
Great. Thanks for that, Leanne. So Leanne, I know you had a sort of series of questions that your community were looking to get answered from this session. Is there anything we've missed while we have Terry and Olive here that you wanted to put to them before we sort of wrap up? Or have we, maybe we've covered
I think
it?
we touched on a lot of things. The only one thing I know we mentioned, the transfer from a pension if you worked abroad. Terry and Olive may have touched on this now earlier, but if you had an old pension scheme and you're now maybe self-employed or you're a new employer, is it a good idea maybe to transfer your old pension into your new pension scheme, or maybe what are the things to consider there if that's the case?
So I think Terry touched on that between the defined benefit and the defined contribution bit. Olive, is there anything else that you would add to that?
Yeah, I think what Terry said about the rule, the type of pension that you had is important, but there's certainly opportunity to move it. If it was a defined contribution scheme, like Terry said, it's something that you can put into your new employer scheme, should be able to take it. If you become self-employed, you can move it into what's called pension retirement bond. Or if you set up a new company scheme for yourself, you could move it into that as your company scheme. So there's definitely things you can do to keep it together. I know people like to keep their pensions in one place because it's easier to keep track of when you get to retirement. So there's certainly things you can do to move it across to something that's in your new employment status, for sure.
So we're just coming to the conclusion of the session, and just before we sort of wrap up, I just wanted to give you each, we've had lots of discussion and lots of discussion this afternoon. I just wanted to see if there was one takeaway, one thing that you wanted people to remember from the session, and I might come to you individually, just what would that be? Leanne, what would you like people's key takeaway from this session to be in your view?
I think just taking the first step and maybe going to an independent advisor, and if you can get your free consultation, I think that's a great start, and just talk to someone, an expert, that they can give you the information then, and just getting set up and starting taking that first step.
Great, thanks, Leanne. Terry, what would yours be?
To not forget your pension when you are taking time out of work.
Yeah.
And to kind of think about it and think about what plan could you put in place either when you go back to work or when you start a new job to kind of bridge that gap that you've got within your pension pot.
Great, yeah. Thanks, Terry. And Olive, then, from yourself?
What I would say for anyone who is, struggling to think about starting it off and get their head around the fact that it's something that's so far away that you don't really want to think about now, I would say think about it as part of your savings. If you are saving at the moment, you might be saving for things that are happening within the next year. So I would say categorize your savings in like maybe 3, short, medium and long. And in the short term is something that you would contribute or you're saving for within the next 12 months, something like Christmas or holidays. And then in the medium term, the things that you're saving for that maybe are a bit bigger, like maybe 3 or 5 years it'll take to save for, like a deposit for a house or something for a car. And then the long term, where you're saving maybe just to be saving for the future, your pension should be in that category. And because there's tax relief on the contributions you make to a pension, that maybe the tax relief from what you put into your pension might actually fund the stuff that you're saving for in the short term, the stuff that you're saving for within the next 12 months. So if you can think about it that way, it's just saving, but it's just very a long-term saving. If you can think that way, that might help.
So thank you so much for your expertise and your advice this afternoon, Olive, Terry and Leanne. So we've heard an awful lot today about people sort of putting pensions on the back burner, and we've heard the value of providing an income for future you. So if you're somebody who you have in your head, you've written something down, I must do something about this, and you want to get a gentle reminder over the coming weeks to hold yourself accountable, if you want to click the green button at the bottom of the screen, it will generate an email. Just put in what action you've decided to take. It will generate an email to you, but also an email to the team in Pensions Awareness Week. He'll just give it a little follow-up in a few weeks, just to remind you of what you've sort of decided to do today. So all that's left for me is to thank our expert panel for your time this afternoon. A really interesting discussion covering all aspects of retirement planning. And thank you all for logging in this afternoon. We hope you found it useful. If you have any questions or anything else that you want to know, just feel free to get in touch. So hopefully lots to think about and lots of action, so we'll narrow that gap one pension plan at a time. Thanks a million. Talk to you soon.
The team at Pensions Awareness Week Ireland would like to thank you for your participation today. Whether you're an individual, company, self-employed or employee, your financial well-being is in your own hands. With the support of the Pensions Awareness Week team, you can take responsibility and control it. If you want to take action now, click the button below. We will help start your journey to build your financial future.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the very first live webinar of Pensions Awareness Week. So it is Monday, the 21st of September, and I am Liz Dwyer, and I am a journalist and a business owner, and probably a very unlikely host for Pensions Awareness Week. Last year we were launching a show called Future Beauty, and I was quoted in the Sunday Indo as having spent more money on my face than my pension, which sounded exceptionally vain, but it was pretty true because I've actually never even put €1 into my pension fund. So I'm in my 40s and I'm like 900 other thousand people in Ireland who have not yet started their pension funds. And it's something we all need to start addressing and changing the conversation around. So I'm here today with two experts. We have Rafe Benson, founder of Moneycube, and Stephen Rice, who is the lead of pensions in Aviva. And we're going to talk through some of the basics about getting started, why pensions are such a no-go topic for so many of us, and how to get really rich before we all retire. So gentlemen, what are the number one facts you would like to get across to our audience today? Stephen, I'll start with yourself.
Hi Liz, and look, I suppose just to kind of start with from my perspective, you know, it's great to be involved in something like this. You know, I suppose I'm quite passionate about pensions, about making sure people are saving and have an adequate pension at retirement. Yeah, but just it has been for many a year. I suppose, look, the three key takeaways for me today are, I suppose, you know, that pensions don't need to be complex. You know, particularly where you have a good advisor involved, they can actually be quite simple and be very easily demystified. I suppose the second is that they are very flexible, around the level of contributions that you make and the kind of investment choice, you control that element of it. And I suppose, look, the third and the biggest one is, for everybody is that you don't need to start by making really big contributions. Most pension schemes allow you to start with smaller contributions and to build those contributions as you move through your working life. So they'd probably be the three big ones for me.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. And Rafe, what about yourself?
Yeah, hi Liz. I guess the big message we have today is that the hardest thing with the pension is making a start on it. So I guess if you're watching this, you've already taken that first step, and don't make the best the enemy of the good here. Your pension doesn't have to be perfect; it just needs to be working for you over time.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so I guess what we really want to do is kind of start, like, as you guys said, you wanted to demystify the idea of pensions. And I suppose from my perspective, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, I kind of view pensions as something for men in grey suits who work in these big corporate conglomerations, or who have HR departments and accountancy departments behind them, and it's all this brilliant way to like shove money into this lovely fund for when you're retiring. But what about for the rest of us, people like me who are self-employed, or people who dip in and out of jobs throughout their career, self-employed patches? And I guess especially at the moment with COVID and everything, our work paths are very up and down at the moment. So I mean, it's something we all need to address. We're all going to be living a lot longer, we hope, and hopefully we all will be, in other countries, it's seen as a very normal thing to start doing in your 30s, and in Ireland we kind of need to start changing that conversation. So we've had loads of questions coming in over the last couple of days, and here's a little sample of what we're going to be talking about over the next hour.
This pension stuff is so confusing. Can you explain a pension to me like I was a 10-year-old, please?
Hi there. My name is Emer, and I'd love to ask a question, a pensions question, please. I was wondering if you could explain sort of in basic terms what exactly the difference between a defined contribution scheme and a defined benefit scheme, and which should I consider one over the other, or are they only applicable to certain people, or just a brief explanation would be great. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone. So my question is, to ensure a pension, if I stop working and just become a landlady, what kind of tax can I pay? How much is it? And how often do I need to pay it? Thank you.
Hi, I have a question about how I get my private pension from work that I left a good few years ago when I started having children. Where do I locate it?
Am I too old to start a pension? I'm thinking to start a pension, but am I too young?
So obviously we all know the key purpose of a pension is to pay yourself effectively when you are in retirement. We all are entitled to the state pension, but for many of us we don't realise how little that really is in terms of compared to our current salary and our current standard of living. So what exactly does it look like going forward for the average person?
Yeah, so look, I think, Liz, obviously it's a real positive, that people are living longer, and indeed not are they just living longer, but are they staying healthier and more active as they live longer. And I think, look, what this slide really highlights is the fact that, at an emphasized level, we've seen a significant increase in age profiles, or the number of people who are reaching 100 even since 2005. So this isn't going back 40, 50, 60 years, that even since 2005, in the last kind of 15 years, there's been a threefold increase in the number of people reaching age 100. And what that means is effectively they're going to have to pay themselves for longer. If we take it back to a more practical level and pragmatic level, the average life expectancies now are somewhere around age 82. So, give or take, it's slightly lower for men and slightly higher for women. But that's the kind of age profiles that people can expect to live to. Yeah, they're the Irish stats as they stand at the moment. And I think it's important to note that for younger people who are starting to save now, those age profiles are expected to increase into the kind of mid 80s if you look at any of these that are out there. So what that really means is that even if you're retiring at 65, 66, 67, you can now assume that you're going to have to pay yourself an income in retirement for somewhere between 15 and 20 years. That is really the critical thing. And I suppose the important factor of that is, the type of retirement that you can enjoy will depend on how much you actually put away now to support yourself in those later years when you do retire.
Okay, fair enough. Rafe, have you anything to add to that?
No, I think that's absolutely right. So it's about thinking of how much time you'll have to enjoy this money, and that's why it's so vital to take action now to put that money down, get it working for you over time, and take charge of it so that it's building up for you.
Okay, and just talk me through the state pension. What are we all entitled to normally, and when does that begin? Either of you.
So look, again, I suppose I'm happy to jump in here, Rafe, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So recognise that the state pension does form the very good foundation for people's post-retirement income, but that's all it's ever going to be designed to do. It is designed just very much to be the foundation, if you like, to pay the basics. So maybe some of your groceries, your bills. I mean, if you look at it now, it's at 248 euros a week. So again, just to put that in perspective, or I suppose in context, that would typically cover kind of maybe bills and, as I say, food for people. But I think really what this slide is trying to highlight here, and what people should be cognizant of, is how much or what percentage of your final salary does the state pension actually cover. Again, as you move up through the salary scales, obviously as a percentage number, that number drops, and it's really, could you afford to live off that number if your final salary was kind of increased? And I think the important thing to note here as well, particularly if you're focusing on younger people, it's that it's not your salary that you're earning now. Most younger people would expect that as they move through their working life, their salary would increase. So I think it's important to do a sense check against this on a regular basis, really just to see, actually, God, now based on my salary now, what percentage or how would that look if I was to solely rely on the state pension, and to kind of look then at how you can supplement that and using private pension provision to enhance that.
Okay.
Again,
So in terms of, it's about €1,000 a month. That's kind of the average if we were to kind of average it out now. And could you survive on that? And I mean, could you survive well on it is the answer, really. I'm sure most people could, but it's the kind of what caliber of life you would like to have in your retirement and what level of comfort you're hoping to achieve. And also, I suppose a lot of people in their late 60s or mid 60s onwards, it's not going to be just you anymore. A lot of people have extremely extended families that they're looking after. Grandparents look after the children and the grandchildren. It's not just me on my own, like as a silo anymore. Would you guys agree?
That's absolutely right, Liz. Yeah, I'd agree with that. You can see that across Irish society, right? We've moved from sort of needing houses that will house 3 generations of people to a housing stock that will require 4. So, for all of us, our timeline is getting longer. That might mean we've got more years to save up and invest, but it also means we're going to need a big old pot there for us when the time comes to start drawing it down. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to do a little poll here about the number one reason that is stopping all of us, or not, well, most people I'm sure who are tuned in here today, from getting started on this kind of pension highway as such. For me, it's just this overwhelming topic that I kind of just started to get my head around. So I mean, the 4 main things we're wondering is it, number one, is it you feel like retirement age is just so far away that it's not worth considering right now. Number 2 is the idea of starting a pension far too complicated and just a bit overwhelming. I think I'd definitely be in that bracket. And number 3, you reckon you can't afford it. I'd probably be in that bracket too. I'm wondering, could I put €5 in a week and still be still be doing well? And we'll be taking this poll now in a second. And number 4 is that you might have other investments or, perhaps property or something in the pipeline that you think you'll be relying on instead. Okay. Before we go on to that poll, I just want to talk about how taking charge of your money is, really important. And we have a video here from Matt, who has attended one of the Moneycubed events before, and he is going to tell us why he found taking charge really helpful.
It was complexity. It was the enemy is the best of the good. Haven't thought about it, should do it, haven't done it, worried about it, and therefore just not done it. Just pushed it under the carpet and avoided it. For me, I'm right at the start of my investment journey. I haven't invested anything in my life other than a savings account. So coming to an event like this with Finamize, Moneycube, I know I'd feel relieved. It'd be like a weight off my shoulder to have done it. So I need to find easy ways to do it, easy ways for me to put the money that I'm earning into somewhere safe that's going to give me a return. And that's what I need to do for me.
So that was helpful, Matt. We should all be a bit more like Matt, I think. So back to our poll. So if you would like to partake, all the answers are coming along the screen below. So we've number 1, I can't get involved with the whole pension idea because I feel like retirement is too far away. B, it's too complicated. C, I can't afford it. Or D, I have other irons in the fire that's going to keep me going throughout my retirement. So if you'd like to take a little vote down below, and we'll come back to the answers later on. Okay, so Stephen and Rafe, I'd just like to come back to you. Okay, so let's talk about the practicalities of getting started. I mean, again, this is where things start getting confusing and a bit like I start kind of zoning out here. So can you explain this in really simple English? Like what pensions are out there and like how am I going to start? Like I don't have a pension, I need to start clearly, and I'm a bit scared. So, you know, hold my hand here.
Yeah, I guess, you know, Liz, the way to think about it as a starting point is like a pension is a piggy bank that you can't smash until you're 60 or thereabouts, you know. So so you're putting money in and it is your money. That's something that is kind of a lot of the pensions industry has maybe forgotten over time, but it's you know, it's your money, it's got your name on the tin, and it is invested in assets that have scope to grow over the long term. So, and is there for you when you retire. That's kind of the foundation of it, right? It is a savings account which you can't smash for a few years. Now, I guess delving into that a little bit more, there are pensions which come through your work from a company, but also, like you said, you know, if you work for yourself, or your company doesn't offer a pension to you, then you kind of got to roll up your sleeves and sort that out for yourself, you know. So that's probably the fundamental two kinds, is a company pension or a pension that you set up yourself and are paying into. So I guess that's maybe a bit of a starting point to get your head around it.
Okay, so how do I get one? Like simply, what do I need to do? Is it a form I fill out online? Do I need to go into a bank as such? What do I need to do? Or do I need to show someone I've got a big pile of money?
Yeah, so most people, like, if you're setting up a pension yourself, you definitely can fill in a form online through a business such as Moneycube, but really what you're looking to end up with is a situation where you've got an account open, which is getting the tax benefits of a pension and which you're paying into each month, probably going to be a direct debit from your bank, and potentially putting in lump sums each year, you know. So yes, we're in the business of giving pensions advice. We stand back, look at your overall situation from both an affordability perspective, what's practical to put in, no point paying in money you don't have, but also, you know, what does it all look like? Is this going to be worthwhile for you? And is it invested in a way that works for you? That might mean you want to access tech stocks, or you want to invest in property, which is something we'll be talking about on Wednesday as part of Pensions Awareness Week, or maybe you want to be invested in ethical funds. So there's a conversation to be had about that as well. So
okay, so you can actually choose where your money has been invested.
Yeah,
have a say in it.
You know, when we think about it, that shouldn't be news, right? It is your money. That's just something that the pensions industry needs to be reminded of. So yeah, that's absolutely right.
I just assumed that these men went off and bought loads of stocks somewhere and hoped for the best. No. And I say men, but you know what I mean. The pension industry, that they just went off and bought all these bonds and stocks and shares, and also that I could come back and they'd be like, "Sorry, we lost all your money," you know. Because that's what happened to my parents, and I'm sure a lot of people in the last recession. It seemed like all of their pensions were squandered. So like that would kind of frighten me a lot. Is that still the case?
Well, I guess that's back to the message, right? So you know, pensions can be great, but you do need to do them right. Okay, so it's not without risk, but then doing nothing is not without risk either, right? So it's all about controlling that. So now, fact is, if you invested in a fund which holds 3,000 other companies in it, you'd be extremely unlucky, and in fact you've probably got a whole load of other problems you're more worried about if that didn't deliver you a pretty material return over a 25-30 year period. So it's all about putting your eggs in lots of baskets. It probably is unwise to bet the farm on a single asset for your pension, but there are now easy ways where you can, as you say, be in the driving seat there, choose those investments, get advice along the way. And it's kind of like any other long journey. You wouldn't set out to walk to Sydney without checking your progress along the way, and if you were heading in the right direction, and if you needed to make some changes. So it's not something that gets solved, once and you never look at. It's a journey that you check in on maybe once a year along the way to see how you were doing.
Okay, so it's kind of like a mortgage. I mean, as in like you might check in on your mortgage and say, oh, should I be changing my interest rates? Should I be changing to a different provider? Should I be adding more, less kind of thing? So you can tweak it as you go. Yeah,
that's right. And the pensions industry has moved on in Ireland in the last 8-10 years, and what represented a good deal then isn't necessarily a good deal now, so I would definitely say this is something, just as there's a lot of conversation out there about switching your mortgage and updating that along the way. We really encourage people to dust down those bits of paper you received, or log in online, get the latest, and just see if you're getting value, if it's right for you, and you'll find there's almost certainly something you can do to improve your pension position.
Okay, and I suppose the big question is how much do you need to, what's the bare minimum you can put in, and what's the maximum you can put in per month, let's say? Or is that a bit of a how long is a piece of string question?
It kind of is. So depending on your circumstances, it can be very generous in terms of getting tax relief. And I think Stephen's going to talk about that in a moment or two, to put large sums into your pension. But to give you a kind of rough sense, right? At a minimum level, there are plenty of people out there putting 75, 100 euro a month into pension. After tax relief, that might be costing them 45, 60 euro per month. So it's much better to start small, do something and build, than to wait for that big payday when you're really going to do it. So that's so far better to start affordably, see some of the benefit come through, build up your wealth, and then really get after it. So that's maybe the first answer. But for self-employed people, for example, if there's anyone out there sitting a bit worried, maybe kind of in their 50s, wondering that they should have done more, the tax system recognizes that people who work for themselves need to be able to catch up quickly with their pensions, and you can find that there's often a lot of benefit to putting in quite substantial, even six-figure sums into a pension in a tax-efficient way. So, everyone's situation is different. That's where we add some of the value that we add, and there's a lot of money to be won and lost by setting this up correctly.
Won and lost. There you go. Now, Stephen, tell me about this tax relief. It seems to me like you either give all your money to the government or you give it all to your pension. And the really rich, clever people give it all to their pension. I want in on this. What do I need to do?
Look, I think, again, as you touched on there, it's very rare that the government give you something for nothing. And to give it across three kind of strands is a real benefit. And I think it shows a commitment, to be fair, from kind of government on government, or government after government, should I say, and that they recognise the importance of people having a pot of money to kind of pay themselves in retirement. But, really the three main types of tax relief are, the first one, I suppose, is on the contributions that you make into a pension. And if you take it that pensions are effectively longer term savings, nowhere else for every 100 euros you save, if you're a higher rate taxpayer, will the government give you 40 euros back, or 40 cents in the euro. So to put it in simple terms, for every 100 euros, if you're a higher rate taxpayer, you will get 40% tax relief up to certain limits on that. So it makes it attractive to kind of pay into it.
So break that down for me. So let's say I'm earning 50 grand. What does that mean?
Well, basically, so if you're say at your age there, at just early into your 40s,
what are you talking about? I'm only 21. obviously.
Yeah. Well, just using that as an example, we're in your 40s,
Yes.
in your early 40s,
Yeah.
you will be able to put up to 25% of your pension into a pension and claim tax relief on it. So it's
Okay.
a staggered, as Rafe was saying there, the older you get, the more attractive the government have made it for you to save higher amounts of your salary into a pension, because they recognise the need to play a bit of catch up. So that's kind of broadly, that's the first thing, is that, again, chatting to your advisor, the likes of Rafe and the guys at Moneycube, they'll be able to advise, based on your age, how much theoretically you can put into your pension out of your salary. And it is staggered to favour those who are a little bit closer to retirement from a percentage perspective.
Okay.
The
Do you need
second
to be
thing,
in... Oh yeah, go on. Keep going.
No, sorry, go on. Yeah.
I was just going to say, do you need to be in consistent employment? Like a lot of people would take career breaks, or, they might be, in and out of work, whether it's by choice or, just situational, especially at the moment. Like, is that something to consider? Like, I always thought it had to be someone in a very stable, consistent job.
No, I mean, I think the big thing for me is, as I said before, that you've pretty much, in a lot of circumstances, you've control over the contributions that you make into a pension. So, if you went through a period of time, for example, where you might have been self-employed, and then you went to work for an employer, as Rafe already alluded to, there's different types of pensions that are available to you. But the critical thing is that, you don't have to be in a consistent employment, or you don't have to be consistently self-employed. Or likewise, if you did go through a period of unemployment, or a period where, maybe affordability was an issue or problem, at any point in time, you can absolutely stop making payments. You can increase payments, and in a lot of all situations, you can play a bit of catch up, and you can kind of make additional contributions to make up for lost time.
Okay, cool. So I mean, I suppose ultimately the message. Yes, go on.
So no, I was just going to say the other thing from a tax relief perspective, which I think is quite important, and I know you've alluded to in the poll there as well, is the other two big tax reliefs are on investment growth. So again, we've talked a little bit about the having control over where you put your money. But again, the government don't tax you on any investment growth that you make within your investments. So if your fund is growing by 4% per annum, that means you get the full 4%. And the third thing, and again, for those who are coming up to retirement, and it's why I believe that you're never too late to start a pension, is that everybody is entitled to a certain amount of their pension funds tax-free when they retire. And again, just depending on the types of pension you have, how long you've been saving, and the type of employment you've been in a tax-free, that everybody is entitled to a tax-free payment at retirement out of their pension fund.
Okay. So, I mean, the key message, I think, is just to stop being scared and to try and start taking a little bit of control back of this whole money situation. And I mean, I suppose everything has moved on, the way we bank, the way we save, the way we do everything. It's just also, we control it by our apps, it's not the way it used to be at all. And I'm guessing even from today, it seems pensions have evolved and come along with the whole money system nowadays.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective on that, Liz, there's evidence out there that someone entering the workforce today will have 14 jobs on average through their career. So, the world of work looks very different than it did for maybe your parents, where, went in, would have had maybe one or two jobs, pension came with it, it was guaranteed, it was based off of your salary, you never had to worry about it, it just kicked in the day you got your clock and your golf membership. That does not exist anymore. So there's good and bad in that. Obviously the bad bit is you have to deal with it yourself, but the good bit is you're in control. There's a lot you can do about it. It's you who pulls the levers now, and it's much more about kind of putting the user in the driving seat here.
Okay, well that's good to hear. Okay, so we're going to chat through our poll results which have come in. Thank you very much. Okay, so, oh God, this is completely opposite to what I would have expected. So only 4% of people said they would not start because retiring is ages away. I thought that would have been the number one. 56% said it's too complicated. Do you hear that, lads? 56%. We need to take this down and make it even more simple. 26% said they can't afford it. So as the gentleman was saying, you could even, starting with €75 a month, So if you're like myself, I would think I can't afford it. But then if I actually, you know, if I'm realistic, I'm spending like €200 a month on my hair. So I probably should, you know, maybe rethink that. And then the 13% are using other savings investments to retire. Again, actually it has been proven that pensions are still the number one best bang for your buck, effectively, regardless of what you're inheriting or investing in. Pensions are still number one. Gentlemen, have you any comments about those poll results?
Well, I guess for me, you know, the one that jumps out there is that it's too complicated, right?
Yeah.
So let's maybe take that one head on.
Yeah.
And hopefully, you know, everything we're doing through Pensions Awareness Week begins to break that down for people, you know. I guess what I'd say is pensions can be complicated, you know. I remember talking to one of Stephen's colleagues at Aviva, and he's their like pension technical consultant. So you know, that's you need to be feeling well for that. But like you know, he said like a job like mine shouldn't exist. You know, like there are countries out there where that is the case, you know, but we do have a very complicated pension system, and you know, as I say, you can by navigating that, you can save yourself a lot of tax along the way. However, at its simplest level, if we go back to that piggy bank, it doesn't have to be complicated. So you can make it complicated. You can choose your own investments. You can squeeze every last tax dollar out. You can structure your business in different ways. But you can also sign up for a direct debit, which is going into a broad basket of index funds from Vanguard or State Street or BlackRock or anybody else, and is, you know, giving you a little tiny piece of hundreds and thousands of companies out there that are growing and investing every day for you, and just drip feed that money in every month in a tax efficient way and let it grow without any tax on the growth over 10, 20, 30 years, you know. So they're kind of as complicated as you want them to be, but certainly we get a lot of customers who say, make it easy, make it simple, and that's our job to do.
So can I just ring you and can you just sort this out for me? Like, I mean, I'm still a bit confused.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm having a pretty busy week right now with Pensions Awareness Week.
I don't mean today. I mean, you know.
But I guess that, you know, that's probably the first step.
Well, I'll just ring Stephen then if you're not interested in my money.
Yeah, but you know, maybe Stephen, I think you had some thoughts on that "not right now" point, which it sounds like it's not coming across very as too much of a worry for people. But there is evidence, isn't there, that the earlier you start, the more money, if you like, the less money you have to put in each month to come up with the same amount of cash.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, just go back to the poll and go back to the thing about tax relief first. From my own perspective, you know, I think you're absolutely right, Rev. I think the complexity thing, you know, you can be as involved as you want, or you can take as what I would call as much of a hands-off approach and let other people kind of manage the money. But obviously do check in on a regular basis, and particularly as you know, you move through your working life, you know, to make sure that you're invested in the right type of funds for you. You know, is it, you know, the right asset mix, etc. But again, that's where the likes of Moneycube and advisors play such a pivotal role. The age thing, I suppose, is really important for me, because, you know, although it might come out as a poll that it's not necessarily the biggest restrictor that I feel I'm too young, it is probably something that people should be aware of, you know. And just in simple terms, if you're looking to say, well, at retirement I want a pot of €200,000 for argument's sake, is what I'm targeting as a pot of money. If you start at age 50, you know, the amount of money that you'll need to put in versus the amount of money that if you start at age 40 is almost double. So if you take it in practical terms, if you want a pot of money of 200,000 at age 65, and you give yourself 15 years to save for retirement, you, broadly speaking, need to be putting somewhere around €1,100 a month in to a pension before tax relief. If you reduce that to age 40 and you start saving at age 40, you'd probably be somewhere around €650 a month. And again, that's just without tax relief and not factoring in investment growth. But it's just to give you a very simple example that the earlier you start, it significantly reduces the amount that you will need to put away each month to make sure that you're kind of on track to get to that target that you want to get at retirement.
Okay, what's the average age Irish people start their pensions at? Do you know?
I'll maybe jump in there, but the evidence that we have is that people really get to grips with this. Like most of us go on a financial journey, right? So it's typically when you're in your 20s, you're just getting some salary in, you're starting to be financially independent. You might then start building a deposit for a house. You in your early and mid 30s, maybe small children, the dreaded second mortgage, also known as childcare. So it's really kind of when you're in your late 30s, early 40s, that's when people start to get serious about this stuff. The mortgages kind of got into a regular pattern. Maybe the schools will stay open and you won't have expensive childcare bills. Maybe they won't. You can really start to put in some significant money. But, as Stephen says, it just the benefit, your future self will thank you the more you do today, right? So it's the old, the old story of asking directions, and the chap says, well, I wouldn't start from here, but, that would be great if we'd all plowed money into our pensions 10 years ago or whenever, but life's not like that. The point is, you start where you are today, and you start chipping away at it as you can.
Okay. I guess,
and I think maybe
Stephen,
just to add one small point to that, sorry, Liz, it's just idea around building up the habit of making payments, and the simplicity of them coming out usually by direct debit or potentially from a salary deduction, depending if it's employer sponsored. But it's just this idea of building up habit, as I'm sure we all know, that once you get into the habit of kind of doing it and putting a little bit away, it's much easier then to look to kind of increase it incrementally over time, rather than have this daunting thing of having that look and feel of, oh God, I have to put a bigger sum away to begin with to get up and running on it. Because if you start chipping away much earlier, it's a habit, and all of a sudden, before you know it, you've built up a small but decent pot earlier in your working life.
Okay, but if you haven't, don't worry. It's never really too late to start, right? That's the message. Unless you're maybe 66.
Well, absolutely. Look. For me, again, I go back to that point that I made a little while ago about getting a tax-free lump sum at retirement. So even if you are a little bit later into your working life before you start, there's two key benefits really to that. One is that, the money you're putting in, you're getting tax relief on. So that's obviously a real benefit. And from an affordability perspective, particularly if you're a little bit closer. But secondly is, you can get that money out tax-free. So there is an efficiency there at retirement, versus maybe just putting it into a bank or a credit union, for example, at the moment, which are paying kind of zero or negative rates even.
How much
and will
money
be for
can you
the
get
next
out
while.
tax-free? Stephen, how much money can you get out tax-free?
So look, it depends on each individual circumstances. It's capped at a maximum lifetime limit per person of 200,000, but usually it will be 25% of the fund or a multiple of your salary, depending on the type of pension that you have. But again, using that example of 200,000 as a pot, if you're self-employed and you're a pot of 200,000, that means typically you could expect to take 50,000 tax-free. So again, it's not a small amount of money by any means.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so I think we are going to go into some rapid fire questions now. We've some of our viewers and our subscribers have some video questions they would like to present to Stephen and Ralph right now. So I think we're going to see some of them.
Hi, I have an ABC and I'm a little bamboozled by the management charges. My company charges more than other companies for their annual management charge, but their performance is quite good, so I'm unsure whether to stick with them or to move to another cheaper company. I'm 44 and work in the public sector.
I'm doing well at work and I'm able to save some money. Could you tell me how much should I invest in my pension each month?
I was having coffee with a friend the other day and she was telling me all about her pension. I suddenly realised that I haven't been focused on starting a pension, and I want to know, is it too late to start, or should I even bother?
Can you tell me what exactly happens to my money when I put it in a pension? Where does it go? If I need it, can I access it? And if not, when can I get a hold of this?
Hello, my name is Michael, and I'd like you to explain clearly to me what is a PRSA. Thank you.
Hey guys, I've heard of people's pensions falling in value. I just want to know, how do I prevent that from happening to me?
So, Stephen and Ralph, I guess I've just a couple of quick fire questions that I'm getting in here. I will start with you, Stephen, if that's okay. Should I ask my employer to switch me to a defined contribution scheme?
Well, look, I suppose to begin with, you need to kind of understand what type of pension that you are invested in. You know, broadly speaking, if you're asking to be switched to a defined contribution scheme, it may mean that you're in a defined benefit scheme. Very simply, defined benefit have been designed to give you a specific pension based on your final salary when you retire. Defined contribution schemes tend to, it's the value of the fund that you've accrued or saved over your time, plus the investment growth is what you'll have to buy your pension or buy your income in retirement. Most defined benefit schemes, as I say, because they have defined pensions at retirement, are deemed to be kind of the golden pensions, if you like. So I wouldn't, without talking to an advisor, be looking at switching out of a defined benefit scheme into a defined contribution scheme, because in most instances you may be better off staying. But again, it just depends on a lot of different circumstances. So do talk to an advisor before making a decision.
Okay, I suppose a really pertinent question. Rafe, you might take this one. Can I cash in my pension?
Yeah, it's a good question, and obviously with the year we've had, it's one we've had in several times. You know, clearly when people have put money in a pension, it's probably the biggest single pot of money they own, and you know, pretty valuable to them. But I guess the flip side of the tax benefits we've talked about is the deal with the government, which is that you know, we will give you tax benefits for putting this money in, provided you use it for paying yourself an income in retirement. You know, so what does that mean? In practice, it's pretty difficult to get your hands on a pension before you hit 50. You know, officially, most pensions can be got from sometime in your 60s. With a bit of work and pulling some levers, it's often possible to access pension money from the age of 50. I guess the point I'd make is that doesn't make it the right thing to do. You know, when you spend it today, you deprive your future self of that investment growth, and you also, you know, the sooner you tap into that pension, you are going to have to spread it over more years. You know, so you're kind of making your life more difficult in the future. But you know, as I say, 50 is probably the key age for most of us, unless we're you know, champion golf players or some kind of you know, sports people who typically do get access early. So yeah, that's 60 in general, 50 with a bit of work, but tread with care.
Okay, Stephen, this is a good one. Can a lump sum from an inheritance be invested in a pension?
Yeah, so I suppose it's always tricky when people look at this, and particularly people, you know, if they're coming, I suppose, that little bit closer to retirement, and they're deemed to be able to see that they can get a little bit more tax relief based on their age profile. In short, no.
No.
He's gone awful quiet there, hasn't he?
Yes. Okay. Right. Well.
Shall I say a few words on that?
Stephen. Yeah, you can. I guess you can jump in.
What I'd say, Liz, is, you know, a euro doesn't know whether it's an inheritance euro or an employment euro. So, you know, what a lot of people might do is, if they receive a lump sum, is decide to put more of their salary into their pension and use some of the money they've got as a lump sum to live off. So, you know, these are all the kinds of things that, you know, with a bit of creative thinking and work, that's where the money is won and lost. But, you know, with clearly, you know, the tax relief, you can't get tax relief on tax you wouldn't have otherwise paid. So so that's probably why I think Stephen is maybe just focusing in on, you know, could you literally put an inheritance money into a pension? But as I say, probably if you do receive a lump sum, that's a key question to be asking yourself: is now a good time to be topping up my pension with some other money? You know. I was really taken with the poll result, Liz, on it's such a dominant response, isn't it, that this stuff is too complicated. So I just wonder if it's worth spending a moment or two really just talking about the exact steps we take as a business to help people start their pension, because it might just kind of, we always, there's all this time of year especially, there'll be kind of ads on the buses and stuff, and it's all, pensions are great, talk to your advisor, and most of us are like, I'm probably between advisors right now. I don't retain an advisor for weekly heart to hearts. So but in terms of what we do as a business, we have a series of questions we would answer to understand someone's situation. It's not an interrogation. It's like a one pager of questions really around what's your age, what's your salary, what's your current pension position, and quite quickly we you have a fairly good steer on where people sit and what the big opportunities are for implementing some improvement. Then we're a regulated business. We're regulated by the central bank to provide financial advice, so we would provide a formal pension recommendation. It's like a 5-6 page document, so pretty detailed, has all a kind of the actual recommendation in terms of which pension provider we would recommend. So it could be an Aviva or any number of other businesses that we use. So we've kind of 5 investment providers and around 4,000 funds at our fingertips. So a lot of flexibility within that. But so we would make a recommendation in terms of where it's invested, how much it's invested, for how long, whether it's a monthly or a lump sum or both, what the costs are. So one of our big values is around transparency and straight talking. So we disclose as much as we disclose everything we can in terms of who you're paying what to, so that you're clear in your own mind. And then typically, we might have a call or a video call, or in the olden days, face-to-face meeting to kick it around, chat about it, and make sure everyone's clear on how it all fits together, and maybe make some changes. But assuming somebody says yes and is willing to go ahead, you're looking at a kind of a couple of days to get a form signed on DocuSign, get a direct debit set up, and have the money going in a into that tax wrapped piggy bank.
Okay, so actually what's interesting is you're saying it's all online now as well, which is kind of, you don't even have to leave your bedroom at this point to get this all set up, which is quite good given the circumstances that we're in right now. Okay, well, that was nice and simplified. Thank you. Can I just go back to my quick fire questions, because they're coming in fast and thick here. This is a very interesting one. During my retirement period, if I'm settled in a different country, how can I access the Irish funds at that point in time? Stephen, do you know the answer to this?
So again, look, what I would say is that, if you've already retired, it's chat to your advisor, see what's the best way in terms of getting your pension paid into different bank accounts, etc. But again, what I would always say is each circumstance is different countries have different regulations, etc. Depends on whether you've drawn them down or not. So do chat to an advisor who'll be able to walk you through your specific case. Okay. A lot of kind of similar ideas here. People were saying about if you open a pension and pay in a lump sum by October the 31st, 2020, you can claim back income tax paid in 2019. Can you explain this, please? Rafe, do you want to explain that?
Yeah, so like a lot of people won't have full visibility on their earnings each year, right? So the tax return system and the income tax system gives you until October of the next year to kind of true all that up and finalize it. Okay. So, over the next few weeks and months, that's what we'll be helping a lot of people to do. So it's look back, what was your income level in 2019? How much from that income could you actually put into a pension in terms of tax relief and also in affordability, how much is in the bank, and then how much did you already pay in, because you're going to have to take that away to get to what's left on the table. But a lot of people who don't have either visibility on their earnings or who maybe have a lump sum at this stage would pop that into their pension in a oneer. And clearly that boosts the value of your pension right away, and you get a piece of paper from a business like Stevens, which Revenue recognise as your evidence that you have contributed to a bona fide pension, and you can either put that into your tax return, which is due normally by the 31st of October, or indeed you can just let Revenue know online by uploading that PDF document to myaccount.ie or to Oroz.ie, depending on which one you use. So, pretty simple process. It's just about letting them know. And what's good about this year is actually just last week, Revenue have extended that deadline. So for online letting Revenue know, it's going to be in early December. You could be able to top up lump sum and so just to put some number, you might, if you've got, lump sum, I'll pick an easy number of 10K lying around, then, you would be sending that across on an electronic fund transfer to a pension. And that would reduce your 2019 tax bill by €4,000 if you're a top rate taxpayer, or €2,000 if you're standard rate 20% taxpayer.
Okay, and our last question. It's a bit of a sticky subject here. There is a lot of talk of pension fund crises. What is the story here? Who wants to take this? Stephen, you're smiling. One, you can take it.
I'm happy to take this. Look, I think the critical thing for me is in its most simplistic is, it's people looking based on their age now at what type of funds they should be invested in. And again, that's where the likes of Moneycube and come in and play a pivotal role. So it's not just a case of saying, well, I'm 35, I'm going to go into a fund today and I'm going to stay there for 30 years until I retire at 65. It's actually looking as you move through your life cycle, I suppose, at where you should be and the funds you should be invested in terms of funds. The second piece to link that, so as you get closer to retirement, you should be looking at, am I in a fund that's too much risk for the age I am, or if it's a fund that is, I suppose, from a funding perspective, too high risk or too low risk based on my age profile. That's the first thing that I would say. The second thing then in terms of pension funds and funding and things like that is, so that links back to the investment return perspective. The second thing then is, when we talk about pension fund crisis, it's really is there going to be enough for people to retire on? So we talk about adequacy. People have enough? And I suppose, really what you're looking at there is when you consider at age 30 or 35 or 40, the fund that you're in, how long you have to save to get to retirement, plus your contributions. So again, if you hit something like 2008, for example, or 2009, when the market kind of decreased significantly, and obviously a lot of people saw a lot of money wiped off their pension. If you were 30 or 35, you had 40 years of age, you had plenty of time to recover. So being in equities or deemed higher risk assets were still fine. If you were age 55 or 60, that's where you had a problem, or that's where you may have had a problem or an issue because you didn't have the same amount of time to recover. So what I would say, I suppose, is critically, and it's most simplistic, is, look at your age, look at the risk of the assets that you're invested in, and do that on an ongoing basis with the likes of a good advisor, such as Ray for the guys at Moneycube, to make sure that you consistently are invested in a fund to match the amount of time that you have to retirement and the risk profile or the risk that you're willing to take or can take based on the number of years you have to go into retirement.
Okay, very good. Okay, sorry, a question that is popping up here like it's gone out of fashion. What do I do if I've lost a pension, which assumes means you were in a work environment a couple of years ago and you remember that you'd started a pension there, but you might have changed jobs or you've been self-employed, or there's a pension from a few years ago. How do you find that, or where do you go? Is there a pension archive somewhere?
It might be in your sock drawer, right? So I guess what I'd say is, you're right. A lot of people are going to have a lot of different jobs through their career these days, and you're probably picking up little pockets of money each time that you hold down a job for a couple of years. That money hasn't gone away. It's still yours, still got your name on it, but it does need you to maybe get involved with it in and ask a few questions, right? So, one of the questions is around, putting all of those in the list. As I say, it might be simple as having that list somewhere and putting it in your sock drawer, but also just being clear in your own mind how it all fits together. It is possible to merge all those into a single fund. There are pluses and minuses to doing that, and that's one of the things we work through with people, whether that's going to benefit them financially, whether it's going to limit their options and that kind of thing. But what's needed is the visibility and the feeling of control over it, and so that means there is a value in at least having a list, and potentially merging some or all of those pensions into a single pot. But I suppose the big message is just because you've got a pension from an old job and you haven't maybe called them up and you've moved house 3 times since you last got a statement, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. The money is still there and still got your name on it.
Okay, so your piggy bank is out there somewhere. Go find it, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
sorry,
I think if I can add.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, just very quickly, just to add to that, from our perspective, in the likes of an insurance company like Aviva, the role that the financial advisor plays in that is absolutely critical. Because again, going back to that thing of just maintaining a list and a record of everything, but also as well, if you have left an employer kind of a number of years ago, again, just making sure, going back to that thing of, am I in the right type of fund or the right type of investment for my age profile? Is absolutely pivotal to kind of just keep a track on that, both from a valuations perspective and also so there's no nasty surprises when you do get closer or at retirement.
Okay, this is a question from me. Obviously, I'm very cynical about pensions. Like, there just seems to be a lot of talk of scams, and I see all these adverts on TVs saying, be careful of pension scams. Who do you really know how to trust? It's a big jump, a big leap of faith. How do I know?
Yeah, good question, Liz. And I think
it's
it's really important to cover it off in the year we've had. I think trust your gut when it comes to this stuff. There have been people who've been opportunistic about approaching people through the crisis we've had this year, when people are probably distracted and not in a good frame of mind for making decisions, or in a bit of a vulnerable place at times. So, part of it is trusting your gut. Part of it is, making sure you know who you're dealing with. If something sounds too good to be true, it almost certainly is, and just treading carefully. And also just kind of like this week itself, it's about being aware and using your judgment there. So, yeah, definitely something to be aware of.
Okay. Well, we're coming to the end of our session now. So, Rafe and Stephen, thank you so much for your time and all your intel. I think you've just about managed to convince me to start up a pension, finally. So, I mean, I guess like all of us, the hardest thing is just making the start. But the fact that you've tuned in today and that you've signed up to this webinar is, I guess, the first step in the journey. We're obviously asking everybody to just make a promise to yourselves that you are going to start your pension. It might not be today, it might not be in the next week, but hopefully over the next couple of months, especially when things, we hope, will settle down with the economy and COVID and so forth, that it is on no longer on the long finger, and it's something that they're going to start doing. There's a link at the bottom of the screen here from Pension Awareness Week if you want to click into that, and that we will keep at you. Well, not that we'll keep at you, but the gentlemen and the team behind Pensions Awareness Week will get in touch and hopefully help you on that journey and make things as less complicated as possible, because I think that's what we've discovered today. Everyone finds this whole area extremely, it's bamboozling, but it is something we need to start. And you're kind of giving the money to the government, or you can put it into your pocket. Basically, that's what I'm taking away from today. So we need to start doing that. So thank you all for being involved. And of course, this is Pensions Awareness Week is going on all week. So there's information on the rest of the seminars on the website and also on Moneycube.ie. We have all the information too, and feel free to stay in touch with any of the team here today. And thank you for your time. And we hope that we've brought some good insights and information to you today. Thank you.
The team at Pensions Awareness Week Ireland would like to thank you for your participation today. Whether you're an individual, a company, self-employed or an employee, your financial well-being is in your own hands. With the support of the Pensions Awareness Week team, you can take responsibility and control it. If you want to take action now, you can click on the button below. And we will help you start your journey to build your financial future.